Okay, today I'm going to show you the parts that go together to put a 49 Ford master cylinder in. Now, I went to YouTube and checked out a Shoebox Central YouTube video that shows you how to do this to put it in the car. But since I have mine out, I thought I would add to that and maybe make a little more clarity of all the parts that are involved in a master cylinder. The YouTube video that's on from Shoebox Central is awesome. It gives you a lot of good information, but I thought since I had mine apart, I would do that. Some other things you probably want to get, which I got, were some seals. These are the seals for your brake pedal and your clutch pedal, and this one also goes around your steering column. Some of the tools, I have some of the tools out here that I used. I'm sure you can figure all that out, what tools you'll need as you go. But the one thing that is really great is this line wrench to get your brass fittings loose on your brake lines. This is a great item to have. It grips around the fitting and it works great. I'll tell you a little story about this brake line tool just a little bit later. Here's the whole assembly, how it goes in your car. I'm going to take it apart for you and try to go through every part. Here you have your clutch pedal, and you can see as I move the clutch pedal, this moves over here. So that goes through the frame right here, goes through the master cylinder, it comes out the other end. This is a shoulder bolt that goes into the transmission. It has 2 washers, and I think there's a felt washer that goes on here. It might make it a little bit quieter. Those usually wear out pretty quick. I don't have any of them right now. They're easy to put in later. This is your lever that will go to your throwout bearing, to the clutch. Of course, this is the lever that is on this side. Now on the other side, this is the side where you have to take the cover off behind the wheel to get at this, and this comes out. Of course, it was a lot harder taking all this stuff off in the car with 70 years worth of dirt, and of course they put a lot of undercoating on these cars. It was a little harder getting all this stuff off, but it did come off. I was really lucky that things came off. So the clutch pedal comes off out here. Then there's a small wavy washer. There's one on the wavy washer on the other side. Now the shaft for the clutch comes out. And as I said, there's a wavy washer there. One goes on here on the other side. Now these are the 2 bolts that hold it onto the frame, and we'll go down in the pit later and I'll show you where those go. But those 2 bolts come out, and then this is the tube that goes through the frame that guides your shaft for the clutch. The next thing would be on the end here. You can see here's the brake light switch. There's 2 fittings here, one for the front and one for the back for the brake lines down below. That would come right out real easy. Let me take this off here. This is the return spring for your brakes, and it goes into the frame. So there's a little bracket here that goes on your brake eccentric. This brake eccentric is an eccentric so you can get your your brake pedal at the right position. You can adjust it by turning this and then locking it down. So now there, we got that off, and the brake pedal comes out. Of course, you have the shaft here that comes out of the master cylinder. A new one of these comes along with the master cylinder, which was this one. My old one was good, and I liked the look of that one. It looked more period with the car, so I'm using that. The only item that was difficult for me to get off was this C-ring, and it goes in this groove on this shaft. I used this pliers, and I took the pins out and I filed some flats on them, turned them around, stuck them in, and filed some flats on them, and this works great. I put it on and off several times, but it'll hold the C-ring, and I'll be able to go down over that and put that ring back on. I think I already mentioned that the cover uses 5 screws there to hold that on. And I think that's about it. That's everything that you have to take apart. So if you thought new cars were complicated, this is pretty complicated to me to take a lot of parts off just to put a master cylinder on. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about my 49 Ford. I bought this 49 Ford from my brother. He found it in a junkyard. I'm not sure what year it was, but the inspection sticker that was on the car when I got it was 1969. I bought it from him in 1972. He bought it out of the junkyard. Believe it or not, this car was hit by a train. And I always say it was nipped by a train because they tell me that the person was too close to the railroad crossing and it hit the front bumper and bent the fenders and hood, and they needed replaced. But they jumped the car, went into a junkyard, and my brother found it. When I got it, the engine was rusted fast. Apparently it had the hood off. The story goes that the junkyard owner was going to put the engine in his tow truck, and because it only had 29,000 miles on it, and he never did, and he either let it sit outside or the hood was off. I don't know which is the right story. But I broke 2 pistons getting the engine apart, put pistons in and rings, got it running, got the rest of the parts. My brother had most of the parts. I needed a hood and a door, and got most of the parts and painted it, and drove it for 10 years. And believe it or not, in 1982, I hit a deer. Now, the reason I hit a deer, I talked about this, about the tools. These are line wrenches. I went to borrow line wrenches from a friend because I was working on my wife's power steering on her car and I couldn't get the fittings off. I went back to my friend's house to get some line wrenches because I didn't have any. I didn't have many tools back then. And on the way home, I hit a deer. So when I see line wrenches, that's the story I think of my 49. Now the deer hit right between the headlight and the center of the hood, pushed this back, destroyed the hood, radiator went back into the fan, bowed out this fender, and I started getting parts over the years. I got several parts for it, but I got into Falcons, and the 49 sat, and you build a house, you help friends and family work on their house, or other things go along. I helped build an addition on our church, and the 49 just sat, but the Falcons were easier to fix. They weren't as major damage as this, and I got into Falcons. And you can actually see my shirt here. I'd say that Falcons are in my DNA. And that's about it for the 49 as far as my story on the 49 and why it sat for so long. Okay, the very first thing you got to do when you're taking the master cylinder off is take off this shield. And like I said earlier, I was able to just turn my wheel completely to the left, and I was able to get in here and get this shield off. But it's going to cover up the clutch pedal, and it goes in with 5 screws. This one here goes under the floorboard. You'll have to peel your rubber mat back, and the rest go in from the opposite direction, and they go in there and just, it's a shield just to cover up that clutch pedal and keep it from getting a bunch of dirt and stuff all over it. Okay, here we are down in the pit. I'm lucky enough to have a pit. Works out great for oil changes and lots of other work. I just want to show you where the master cylinder goes. It goes right here in these 2 holes. You bolt right there. Here's the hole that the shaft goes through that comes from the other side from the clutch pedal over here. Brake pedals over here. Here's the fittings that go in the back of the master cylinder, one to the back of the car, one to the front of the car. Up here you'll see there's a hole where you would fill your master cylinder. You have to take your carpet up or your mat up, and you can open that up and you can check your master cylinder level. Now you'll see here, up here is where the brake pedal comes through the floor, and if you go over here there you can see where the clutch pedal comes through the floor. And over here is where that cover goes that I talked about earlier. The cover covers up the clutch pedal and keeps all kinds of dirt and everything from going against that. But that's pretty much it for down here in the pit as far as the master cylinder goes. If you'd like to check out my Falcons, I know some of you are Ford guys, and if you want to check out my Falcons, you can go to my website. I have several Falcons on there. There's a couple that I restored. There's one on there that I did with my grandson. And my other grandson's behind the camera. You don't see him. But you can go to www.sites.google.com/site/what a falcon. And that's my website. Go check it out.